Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about how to get note values to show up on your guitar tabs. And so this is for folks who already have some understanding of what the note values mean. So like whole notes and half notes and quarter notes, what those are. You know what they are, but you just want them to show up and be depicted on your tabs. So for those who, for example, don't want to, in addition to the tab, they don't want to have the traditional music notation above it, for example, just the tab on its own, but they want these rhythmic subdivisions to show up. This is for you. So you can see in this example, I've got the whole note, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, rests, and triplets. Okay, and this is going to probably give you the bulk of what you'll need. I'll also go into dotted notes and tied notes. I'm going to show you how to do all of that coming up. So firstly, let's just have a listen to how this example sounds. As you can see, I've kept the melody dead simple. It's just the open A string. In your own chart, you would probably have a melody with, notes moving up and down on the tabs. This is all just about the rhythmic subdivisions and how to get them to show on your tabs. So I wanted to just keep this melody simple. So let's have a listen to this example, and you'll hear the metronome going in the background. Alright, so how do you get these rhythmic note values to appear on your tabs? Well, as always, it's fairly simple if you know where to look. So all you do is you right-click anywhere on your tab, not on a note, on the tab itself, and then you come down to Stave or Part Properties, click on Advanced Style Properties, and again, select Note Values here. Now you can see this preview pane down below, which will update as soon as you check or uncheck any of these options above here. You'll see what I mean now. So a lot of the time tabs are shown without rhythmic values. If that's what you want, then you just select none here where it says shown as, meaning note values shown as none. So there you've just got the numbers without the note values. But I'm assuming because you're watching this, you do want the note values to show up. Another option in Musescore 4 is you can select note symbols. Now you can see that all the note values are shown as the traditional music notation note values, and they appear above the tabs. So that's an option that some of you might like that. More commonly, most people select stems and beams. Okay, so that's exactly what you see on your chart there. So you want to make sure that that is selected. I don't know if it's selected by default when you start a new tab. So you want to do exactly the steps that I've just shown you and make sure stems and beams is selected there. Click OK, click Apply, and then OK one more time. And then all of the notes that you've inputted into your tabs will have the rhythmic note values included. Okay, so we can see how they're depicted. So that might be all that you need, and you might just say thanks very much. Now I can do my guitar tabs, and that might be as far as you want to go in the video. But for those who want to go a little bit deeper, let's just talk about what these individual note values look like. So we've got the whole note, which is just the number on its own. There's no stem or flag involved in this, just a number. And then the whole notes and quarter notes have a stem. You can see that the quarter notes have a longer stem, and the half notes about half the length of the quarter notes. There is another option for the half notes if you want it. Just right click again on the tab and just go through the steps that we did before: Stave Part Properties, Advanced Style Properties, Note Values, and then come down to where it says Minim in brackets half notes. You can have your half notes appear with no stem, but I'm not too sure why you would want to do that, because then it would look more like a whole note, right? So, or a short stem like we had before, or as a slash stem, and this is the alternative that I was talking about. Now you can see how it's put two slashes on the stem. I'll just apply that to this tab. There you can see it there. So it has a stem more like the quarter notes with 2 slashes through it. So that's also an option for half notes if you want it. I'm just going to take that back to the way it was now. And then we have eighth notes with a stem and 1 flag or tail, and then 16th notes with a stem and 2 tails. Rests I'm going to get to in just a little while, and then we've got our triplets. So this should comprise most of the note values that you're gonna need. Of course, there's also 32nd notes and 64th notes, but those are a lot less common. But I'm going to show you how to input those two in just a second. So the question then for those who are maybe a bit newer to Musescore 4 is, how do you input these note values into your tab? And it's fairly simple. It's just delete this note here. Okay, so you can see, you might not know this, but this is a whole note rest. Okay, so that's silence for 4 beats. So what you want to do to input a note is you just want to click on the rest, which will be there already, and then hit the number, the letter rather, N on your keyboard, N for note. Okay, now we are in editing mode, and we come up to where we see all these rhythmic subdivisions on the top left of your toolbar. So we can see whole notes there, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, 32nd notes, and 64th notes, and there's probably more if you want as well. But we want to put a whole note in there, so I'm going to select whole note and then come down and just put 1 note in there, and that just shows the open A string. Of course, if you want a melody note to show there instead, like a fret number, let's say for example the 7th fret, then you just hit the number 7 on your keyboard, or the number 9 or 3 or whatever. So I just want the open A string, so I'm going to hit a naught there. Then I'm going to hit N again, N for note again, to get me out of editing mode. Now I've literally just done that for each of these rhythmic subdivisions. So I think that's pretty straightforward, and most of you should understand that. Okay, so another thing that you might want to include in your score, this is something I use quite a lot, is the dotted note. And a dotted note basically adds half of the original value of the note to the existing note. So for example, in the instance of a half note, that's the value of 2 beats. If you add a dot to this note, it'll add 1 more beat, so half the original value. So 2 plus 1, it'll make that 3 notes. So you want to select the note there and come up to where it has this note with a dot next to it, augmentation dot, click on that, and that's made it a dotted half note now. So that's 3 beats, and it's automatically compensated by turning this into one quarter note, whereas we had 2 quarter notes before. It's taken that other quarter note and added it to the value of this dotted half note now. And you can literally do that with any note value. So if you wanted a dotted quarter note, select the note and then come up to the augmentation dot, click on that, and you can see how that's made it a dotted quarter note, which is a quarter note, 1 beat plus half of its value, 1.5 beats. It's compensated by turning this into an 8th note. And the same is true of any other note value. So that's dotted notes. I hope that makes sense. All right, so another thing that you might want to make use of, that I've used fairly often as well, is ties. So to tie any 2 notes together, and I'm assuming you know what a tie does, but for example, let's say you want to tie this last note of this bar to the first note of this bar. You just select this note where you want the tie to begin, come up to where it says tie, and you can see that it's now tied these 2 notes together. And then you would hear this note for the duration of this note and the duration of this note. But again, I'm assuming that you know what ties, how ties work. So you could literally put a tie anywhere. Okay, so the next thing we should probably talk about is rests, and a rest is just silence for any given note value. Okay, so any given silence for any given rhythmic value. So to add a rest, all you do is click on the note that you want to make silent, and then you come up to this rest sign here, click on that, and it's automatically turned that now into a whole note rest. Okay, so you just hear silence for this whole bar now, where there was a note heard for the whole bar. Okay, I'm going to, and this is assuming you, again, that you know how rests work. Okay, so if you want, for example, a half note rest, click on this half note, come up to rest, and it's automatically turned that into a half note rest. Okay. If you want a quarter note rest, same thing. Click on the quarter note. It automatically picks up that it's a quarter note. It adds a quarter note rest to your tab. Okay, something to note here is that I don't think it automatically adds the rests. So I think they're invisible. So what you have to do to get them to show up on your tab is, again, do the same steps as before. Right click on the tab, stave part properties, advanced style properties, node values, and just make sure this show rests is checked. If you uncheck that, you can see that the rest disappears. It hasn't really disappeared, it's just become invisible. You would still hear that silence. If you can hear silence, you would still hear that silence, but you won't see it on your tab. I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to add that back in there because I think that's important. When I'm notating tab, I want people to see that there's a rest there. All right, so the last thing to chat about is just how to notate and input triplets. So we have 16th note triplets, 8th note triplets, and quarter note triplets. And again, I'm assuming that you understand what triplets, how triplets work. Just a quick little breakdown for those who maybe don't know. 16th note triplets is 3 notes in the space of an 8th note. An 8th note triplet would be 3 notes in the space of a quarter note. And a quarter note triplet would be 3 notes in the space of a half note. I'm not going to go into too much depth because, again, I'm assuming that you understand how triplets work. But just to show you how to input all those notes on your tab, I'm just going to select that and delete. Okay, so let's first start with 16th note triplets, which is 3 notes in the space of an 8th note, as I said before. So you can either just select this 8th note rest, or you can input an 8th note on your tab. So I'm going to just assume that this rest isn't here for a second. I'm going to hit N on my keyboard again, N for note, and I'm going to put an 8th note on my tab. You can see that it's an actual note, but I want to turn this 8th note into triplets, right? So hit N again. So I'm now out of edit mode. With this selected, you can see that it's blue. You come up to where it says triplets here. Click on that, select triplet, and you can see that the shortcut for this on a Mac is Command 3. I assume that on Windows it would be something like Control 3, but you'll have to just check that out on your own there. So that's triplet, and now you can see that it's turned this 8th note into 3 16th notes, right? So to add those notes now to this this template, essentially, you hit N again to edit, and then just input the notes that you want. So let's move on to 8th note triplets, which is 3 notes in the space of a quarter note. So again, I can either left click on this quarter note rest, but I'm going to assume that's not there on your tab. So I'm just going to help you by inputting a note here. So N on your keyboard, put a quarter note in there. Again, if you're not sure if you have what note value you have, you just come up to the left here on your toolbar, and you make sure that the right note value is selected. That's quarter note, so I'm correct there. I put an actual quarter note in there. Get out of editing mode by hitting N again on the keyboard, and then with that selected, I come up again to triplets, and it's automatically turned these into 8th note triplets, right? Again, to edit these and input these notes, N on your keyboard again, and there we go. And then, of course, the same exact thing for these quarter note triplets. I'm going to assume that you don't have this rest. N on your keyboard. I'm going to input a half note there because we want 3 quarter notes in the space of a half note, right? Okay. N again to get out of editing mode. With that selected, come up to triplets, and it's automatically put that in. N again to input the notes, and there we have our triplets inputted. So I I hope that this makes sense. I've tried to be as thorough as I can. I'm sure there's more that I could have added. If there's any questions that you do have, just feel free to ask a question in the comments section below. So I hope that you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.